All right, welcome everyone to Coleman Report Live, May 1st edition. Today we have a big show for you guys. We're going to give you a ton of stuff. Chuck Evans put this together. He got us some very, very nice guests for us, two important community bankers that are in the thick of the PPP Round 2 funding. We're going to get their perspective today. We'll start off with Katie. Give us an update on what Rubio said and what's going on with the time frame of the second round.
Well, with 7A, there was this concern that it's going to be shut down here as PPP gets depleted. And Rubio and Cardin sent out a letter yesterday basically calling it a drafting error and urging the agency to provide immediate administrative fix to that error. So it sounds like that will be fixed here shortly.
Chuck, you put this together. Take it away.
Thanks, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you again. We have Lauren Rinaldi is the president of First Resource Bank in Exton, Pennsylvania, and Ryan is from Heritage First Bank in Rome, Georgia. And again, Chuck, thank you for inviting them.
Sure. And again, we've gone online here before and talked about the Ruth Chris steakhouses and the large $10 million loans. But like we said last week, 75% of the PPP loans that have been made have been less than $150,000. And so that's been encouraging to us as community lenders. So certainly, and the first round went quickly. It seemed like the Wells, the Chases, a lot of the big lenders gobbled up a lot of the activity or a lot of the volume. The second round, we're here today. Today's Friday, day 5, I think, and we're at least this morning or last night, it was $220 billion out the door of the 300 to 310. So it looks like it could last through the weekend, maybe. They've kind of let it trickle out a little bit more, giving the community bank lenders some leeway. Yesterday, from 4 p.m. in the afternoon through midnight, you could if you were $1 billion or less, those were the only lenders that could go into E-Trans. So I'm encouraged that that this second round has been a little bit more equitable than, say, the first round. And I thought it was important. Two friends here, Lauren Rinaldi from First Resource Bank in Exton. It's a community bank. You've been really active in the community. You've done some SBA lending, and you've jumped into the PPP program. And then Ryan Ernest, the same thing in Rome, Georgia, president of Heritage First, some SBA lending, jumped into the PPP program. No one's knocking the socks off, but you've served your community lenders. So I kind of want for us to talk about that. And maybe, Lauren, the first question to you would be, how has this been the most rewarding relative to the PPP program for you or First Resource Bank? And then I'll turn it over to Ryan with the same question.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for inviting me today to participate in this. We've had business owners literally in tears, so relieved at the help that we were able to get them. And while we don't have the headlines that Bank of America has with doing hundreds of thousands of loans, we did $50 million worth of loans. Awesome. By comparison, that's far more than my net loan growth for the entire calendar 2019. We grew $35.5 million in calendar 2019 and just did $50 million in loans in the last month. So we're incredibly proud of what we were able to do, and it is all hyper-local. And we actually have been tallying how many jobs were impacted by all the applications. And we're at over 4,700 jobs, which we equate to 4,700 families. So if you want to talk about that hyper-local reach that a community bank can do, it's been absolutely amazing. We haven't worked this hard since we opened the bank 15 years ago, but it's been really worth it as we see the results. We literally had a customer who came in and dropped off, not that we're open, but dropped at the front door, croissants and cookies. It's so grassroots, and it's been, quite honestly, a little bit fun to watch the big banks do what big banks do and let the community banks shine in a moment like this.
Thank you. And Ryan, tell us a little bit about how it's worked in Rome, Georgia. I know one of the smaller loans in your portfolio you did. So
We did, yeah, and thank you for having me. And I would echo what Lauren has said. We've had some of the same occurrences here in Georgia as you've had there in Pennsylvania. A lot of grateful borrowers, customers who have had to make decisions they never thought they'd ever have to make. That is keeping their businesses open, a whole lifetime worth of work almost down the tubes. Then all of a sudden, PPP program arrives. And I think that, I think everyone would agree that while our efforts will be rewarded in time for this, we didn't really consider the PPP to be a really big income statement or balance sheet play. More or less, it was for us was more trying to get money back into our community. And we understand that that's, really the true overarching spirit of the program really is just to keep our economy going, put people back to work, those types of things. So that's been our focus all along, and just keep the wheels of our local economy moving. So principally our approach has been, focused in this lane. And, to Lauren's point just a moment ago, that promotes and supports the meaning of the community banking brand as a niche. And so, we've had the situations where we've had the restaurant owner come in and has been able to save a 30-year business based upon just the efforts that we've been able to do for them. They're the real heroes out there. They're still open. They're still serving our community. So we've been able to, we know we saved 5 jobs in that location for sure. Our loan officers have a renewed sense of pride and a renewed sense of belonging. And it's been really interesting to see how this silver lining has emerged from what was not, was kind of a dark cloud out here. So it's been been an open experience for us.
and that's what the people don't really hear about are the smaller loans, the smaller borrowers, and how we've touched them. Let's talk for a second. Historically, being in the SBA world, we've focused on small businesses, owner-occupied businesses, but this program's touched non-for-profits as well. Have you guys done a few of those? And tell me a little bit about that if you can. Lauren, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, we've done many religious organizations. That was a nice carve out that happened in these rules. Yeah. So we've had churches, synagogues. We've had senior centers, 2 senior centers in our local area that are feeding seniors on a daily basis. Thrilled to help groups like that. Foundations. We have one foundation that helps people with fighting cancer in Chester County. And, at a time like this, a lot of donations dry up, and it's been a great way to help keep them on their missions and doing what they're doing.
That's great. How about you, Ryan?
Same here. Similarly to a lot of religious organizations, our local Boy Scouts chapters, those kind of folks. We're a regional area here in Rome, so we have a lot of regional offices for the Boy Scouts and the Boys and Girls Clubs and those kind of places. So yeah, we've been able to help them as well. Our Rome Little Theater is someone that we're also working with as well. And to Lauren's point, absolutely. When the cash flow chain is broken, then a part of what goes down in that process is the ability to provide the donations, the pledges, those kind of things that they focus on and have to function as an ongoing concern. So this gives them the opportunity to keep their staff employed, keep them working, keep them planning, and then begin to look at another season for performances or something like that. So having said that, we're seeing the same exact thing.
That's great. And I think this program is entirely different than what any of us have ever done before. What, in your opinion, what's created the most angst for you, Lauren, in implementing the PPP program?
That one is easy. The rules have changed literally daily. I mean, that's every morning waking up to a new set of rules for loans we've already done has been unbelievably painful. The fact that we still don't have guidance on forgiveness is criminal because we have borrowers taking these loans and we're counseling them as best as we can. And we know the high level, 75% has to be used on payroll, some of the high level things, but as far as the actual documentation burden, I think it's really unfair that we don't have more details to give the borrowers because they're nervous. They're doing this based on the loan being forgiven. And if something happens down the pike and the rules change and they're not going to be forgiven, we're a little bit worried about them looking to us as far as not counseling them the right way. And we're really just doing the best we can. But those rules, we need them yesterday.
We had a couple webinars where we did it for an accounting firm and for a law firm. And of course, those two organizations get into the weeds. What's going to be forgiven, what's not going to be forgiven. At least in my opinion, if the borrowers go into this with their eyes open, knowing that they, in good faith, they borrowed 2.5 times payroll, then chances are it's going to be forgiven. But if they've made some small mistake, then they're just going to have to pay it back. And I think that's going to be most of the issues that we see. Hopefully, it's not going to be the fraud and some of the things that people are talking about today. It's probably going to be smaller mistakes that the borrower will just have to pay back. Ryan, what's been the most angst for you in this program?
Lack of transparency in the rules.
Yeah.
We recognized early on that a lot of our borrowers were calling, which is the one that don't have to pay back. So the mindset was out there that this is more of a grant than it is a loan. And we had to educate our borrowers from the perspective that this is a loan. You're signing a promissory note. And is the potential of this loan is to be forgiven. If that's the intention, then you need to act in the same way in collecting the same data that you gave us to approve your loan so that you can prove that that's where the monies went. It was for a eligible source, and therefore it can be forgiven. And when you have that conversation with them, it really takes a different tone because while there's no guarantees, those kind of things are present. However, it is a promissory note, and that carries the weight of a contract, and that does bring a level of significance to the process. So educating them, then right now, very, very, very need to, as Lauren said, start, how are we going to forgive this? What's the process? And our first round of funding, those folks are banging on us looking for, what do I need to be doing right now? How do I need to be doing this? And we're not able to give them that information. And the frustrating thing is that our customers are used to and accustomed to receiving a level of service from us where there's a committed type answer for them. We're their advisors. So they're asking us, and we're typically answering in yes or no questions. And we as bankers veer into the gray area, then a level of distrust begins to set in. And as a result, that's not where we want to be as their banking or as their advisors. So yeah, there's a little bit of frustration from the lack of transparency or the lack of rules that are coming down. I realize everyone's putting this all together so quickly, but the borrowing public is really asking us now what happens next, and we don't have those answers yet.
Well, and I think Treasury's used the banks, both the large banks and the community bankers, as a utility to get access to capital and kind of taken a blind eye to compliance. And we in this industry live for compliance, making sure the T's are crossed and the I's dotted. And it's been very uncomfortable for us to operate differently than that. And so that's been the challenge. And I think, Joseph, you mentioned the point, it's like flying a plane, but we're still putting it together. So that's been the challenge. Capacity, like Lauren, you said, you did 50 million, which is way more than, you've done that in a couple of weeks versus what you do in a whole year. Capacity has been a real challenge for us, hasn't it? For everybody, as a lender service provider, as a small community bank, even the large Wells and Chases, I'm sure that's been an issue. Okay, what would be your suggestion, Lauren, if you could wave a wand, if they do a round 3, what would you change, or how could we improve it? If somebody's listening, what's a message to them?
Well, we've kicked this around a lot because not a lot of people are asking us our opinion, so I'm glad you did. We have 2 things. One is we would love to have a slug of money up front. Give us 100% of our capital. Let us go do the loans and then submit the loans on our timetable we can get in. This sitting at E-Tran and watching the spinning wheel, it has wasted so many hours of our time when we could be helping customers. It has been the most inefficient process ever. So we would love to have a slug of money, be authorized to do the lending, still do all the paperwork and the compliance, but if we could get authorized with just a slug up front, that would help us do our job better, as well as give us windows of time. That 4 to midnight time slot that we had a couple of days ago, that was huge. We're sitting now with every application we have submitted and approved. We don't know what to do with ourselves because we had so much pent-up demand for a month. And now we're like, well, let's go shake the bushes. Let's go find some more people, which is great. And we found a couple today, but giving us a specific time window, just don't waste our time.
And we're working weekends. What are we going to do this weekend?
I don't know.
Ryan, how about you? What's a good suggestion if you could wave a wand today? How could we change the program to make it better?
Yeah, the way we would do that, I think, would be to go ahead and publish the end of the game when the game starts. So you know exactly how you're going to finish. Talking about the airplane analogy just a moment ago, how are we going to land the airplane? If we put this liquidity out on the streets, how are we going to get it back? And that would make board of directors members, like my board is saying, Ryan, how are we going to get this back? How do we know we don't have one liquidity event here? How do we know we don't have an asset quality event here? How do we know that everything's going to be okay? And I can't answer the question for them in the way that they want to hear me answer it, frankly. So having the ability to allow those they're in the driver's seats of watching and participating in this to be able to say, this is how this is going to happen. When you sign this loan, Mr. or Mrs. Borrower, this is the way this is going to go from here on out. And this is what you can expect. Begin to develop this folder of documentation so that when it comes your time, that we can work very systematically and very efficiently to unwind what we've wound up here. And that's been one of the concerns that's been ours all along is that you get this, notification on Friday that's going to be another $310 billion. It's first come, first serve. And there's a level of anxiety that gets out of the system. And when we don't call them back in time or if they can't get the answers they need, it just manifests itself. And so you got this anxious public out there that just doesn't, they want the information, they need the loan, and they're almost afraid to take the loan because they don't know how, once they get it, what they're going to do with it when they get it. We've told them what to do with it. We've told them it's to pay payroll, and then there's some other allowable expenses. But then again, if they don't know exactly how it's going to happen to document all that, then they're almost afraid to spend it. We've had that come up a couple of times. So if we could wave a magic wand, Chuck, to answer your question, I would say that if we had clear guidance, as well as don't create this anxiety like we're dropping the, it's not like the Kentucky Derby. We're not dropping the gate and everybody's running for the pole, and that creates anxiety for the bankers. It creates anxiety for the borrowers, and the whole industry is just tied up in a knot. And if it could be more systematically unraveled and better planned in that regard, that would be my recommendation.
Thanks, Ryan. And I know we have good leadership with Bill Manger at the SBA and Tony Wilkinson at Nagel, and hopefully the third round, if there is one, will have those kinds of improvements. Certainly, I think the second round was a little bit more palatable than the first, although there were those issues. So that's what we wanted to kind of convey today, just the opinions of some community bankers that have been in the trenches. I'm going to leave it to Joseph to introduce Mary Peters with the SBDC, one of the best SBA partners that you can have. So Joseph, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, guys.
Great stuff. And Ian, he's a fan of the show. He comes on every day. Kudos to Lauren and Ryan for their comments on angst. Please let the respective states bank associations and district offices know. They echo my sentiments exactly, and I think there's a lot of people on the call that really needed to hear your comments, and we do appreciate you guys being on. I want to introduce Mary Peters. Mary, you've been a friend of the show for a while. Give us an update on the SBDC CARES Act activity, what you're working on, and how lenders can work with them.
Okay, thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Chuck, for that endorsement of the SBDC program. I've been a member of the SBDC for almost 30 years because I believe in what we do. I've seen lives changed. In today's market, we see both those tears of joy and those tears of angst as small businesses have difficult challenges and choices that they have to make. The SBDC, or Small Business Development Center program, is partially funded by the SBA. We are located throughout the United States with over 1,000 locations, estimated at about 5,000 full-time consulting and training professionals. And we also benefited from the CARES Act to deploy some additional resources and expand our footprint to help businesses even more. So as you talk about reference the angst associated with the lack of rules and compliance with regard to the payroll forgiveness, we're digging in and working with the financial systems of our clients to shore them up, make sure they're current, make sure they're accurate reflection of what they're doing, so that when the guidelines are clear, they're in perfect compliance and can maximize on that loan forgiveness. If you want to go to the next slide, Joseph. We are deployed completely virtually right now, since we are the matching funding that comes from SBA comes through our states, usually through colleges and universities, higher ed, some state governments. So we are deployed remotely, but we're, like you, are taking advantage of Zoom and WebEx and GoToWebinar so that we can continue to serve those clients. And for me, really, I think the word of the day is pivot. we're working with our clients so that they can pivot their businesses, and we've seen lots of successful pivots, such as a client involved in high volume custom flag manufacturing that has pivoted to do face masks. A client that is involved in plastics manufacturing that has pivoted to make the plastic face coverings for the healthcare industry. We've actually had some very successful restaurant clients that were able to pivot with the to-go and the curbside delivery and personal delivery. So we've seen some great success stories, also some frustrations. So we are pivoting what we do to help. Kind of our meat and potatoes is helping small businesses start and grow, and certainly financing is a part of that, and we value our lending partners. But we are having to pivot for the last few weeks, helping folks apply for that funding, now helping them apply for the forgiveness end of it, helping them make plans to reopen in a very thoughtful and strategic way, win back those customers, find new customers, and navigate the realm of what's available, whether it's through the federal government, the state, local organizations, private organizations that are all stepping up with loans and grants that, like the PPP and EIDL, tend to open and the floodgates, a lot of responses, and then they're gone. But those relationships that we have with the local lending community are so vital. And when we talk about pivoting, Ryan and I were visiting about many SBDCs partner with local lenders to offer what we traditionally call lunch and learns, where we take the opportunity for a busy business owner to come in at lunchtime and they're handed a box lunch so that they can hear a short presentation. One of our SBDCs pivoted and is now offering what's called a Learn Now and Lunch Later, where our partner who used to provide a box lunch is providing a certificate to a local business owned by a family, a small business owner, so that they can take advantage of the to-go and curbside delivery, support their local community, and get that lunch afterwards. So again, my word of the day is pivot. We're here to help small businesses through this current crisis. This slide that's up provides a URL to our national association, America's SBDC, so that you can find your local SBDC if you don't know them already. We also have some fantastic resources posted, but I encourage you as lenders to get to know your local SBDC so that you can pivot with them to serve the small business community, serve your potential customers, and help your existing customers pay back those loans or earn the forgiveness. My contact information is also listed there, so please feel to contact me directly if you're having difficulty finding your local SBDC or if I can help in any way. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and talk about what we can do for the small business community.
Excellent, excellent stuff, Mary. Thank you very much for coming on. As always, we like having you and your comments. Chuck, Lauren, Mary, and Ryan, and Katie, we had an excellent show today. I think this went very well, and a lot of people had to hear hear it. You know, I've never seen a show like this, and I think this was fantastic. So we appreciate your comments. We will see you guys on Monday and 1 o'clock Eastern. And again, thank you for coming on. Have a nice weekend. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Be safe.